Tim Meyer.
You, Tim Meyer.
I said Tim Meyer.
They said you were coming.
What they say true?
See for yourself.
What's this?
They call it a podcast studio.
What the heck's a podcast studio?
It's a studio for podcasting. Superior sound, visuals, allowing the viewer to either watch or listen for an intimate experience of long-form content.
Long-form content?
Without any restrictions from any cable or network provider, there's no telling how long it can be.
Is it affordable?
You have no idea.
What's he doing?
Found him here in the studio. Recent college graduate trying to start a podcast with his friends after debating the existence of God in women's sports.
How come I can't hear him?
Stephenville's is spying us through the intergalactic satellite system. Also buy my merch with my special creator code.
How long before this becomes accessible?
It already has.
If you or someone you know is looking to start a podcast for business or personal use, look no further than the Mitt TV. With hourly rates starting as low as $1.60 an hour, the Mitt TV grants access to state-of-the-art podcast studio, allowing you to record perfect audio, amazing video for your audience. Contact the Mitt TV today at mitt.tvpodcast@gmail.com.
This job stinks.
So,
Not more when the fourth.
Don't you call more important?
well, doesn't look almost.
Ooh. Yo, this is Kowalski with the Mitt TV. How we doing?
Hello?
Hello?
Yeah,
How can I help you today?
I'm trying to watch the Mitt TV
That's awesome. Where are you trying to watch the Mitt TV at?
on my TV.
Perfect.
Let me break it down for you.
Yeah!
Here at the Mitt TV, we offer a whole slew of content, from community events, Romeo Community Schools, sports, and everyone's favorite, the Village of Romeo board meetings. Just find the YouTube app and in the search bar type at the Mitt TV. Once you find our channel, you can go to the videos tab for our entire catalog of videos.
What if I'm trying to watch something live?
It is so easy you have no idea. Just click the live tab to find all previous and upcoming live streams.
I see that, but I'm trying to watch an archived Village of Romeo Board of Trustees meeting.
Whoa, alright, board meetings! For any and all archived meetings, select the playlist tab. Not only will you find all meetings for the Village of Romeo organized by year, but you'll also find Romeo Community Schools and Romeo District Library. Our Mitt TV page can also be accessed on your smartphone. Just download and open the YouTube app and type at the Mitt TV in the search bar, and there you go. Or if you're on a computer, find the search bar at the top of your window and type youtube.com/@themitttv.
Sweet.
Another satisfied customer.
The regularly scheduled meeting of the Board of Trustees of Romeo.
Sick.
Would you all please stand?
7 o'clock. We will call our meeting to order for this April 22nd, 2025 at 7 p.m. Can we stand for the pledge? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Clerk Lucero, could you please call the roll?
Yeah. Bartholomew.
Here.
Edwards.
Here.
Fowler is absent. Rosso.
Here.
Parker is absent. Kerr.
Here.
Poznansky.
Here. Okay, do we have an approval of the agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as stated.
Support.
We have a motion by Edwards, support by Bartholomew. All in favor of approving the agenda as is?
You're talking about the one that was just handed to
Yeah,
us?
April 22nd.
Okay, thank you.
Any opposed? We have an agenda. Moving into public comment. You have 3 minutes. Timer.
Hello, everybody. My name is Zach Throne, 166 Benjamin Street, Village of Romeo, Michigan. Just wanted to put a face to the name to the email that was sent out this morning. We'll be open and happy to chat with any further questions you might have. I know Justin isn't here, but thank you, Justin, for giving me a call today and a little bit of your time and consideration. So yeah, just wanted to say hello. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any more public comment? Okay, moving into our new business. We had proposed 2 budget work dates of either Wednesday, April 30th or Tuesday, May 6th. And Plant Moran let us know the 30th was their preference. So if the 30th still works for the majority of the board, could we have a motion?
7 p.m. is that?
Mm-hmm.
Make a motion for the next budget workshop to be Wednesday, April 30th, 2025 at 7 p.m.
Support.
We have a motion by Rousseau, support by Edwards. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We have none opposed. Okay, and now moving into our unfinished business of our draft proposed budget, working on our general fund and our municipal and street funds. Danielle.
Hello, it's good to see everybody again. So today we're going to go through the general fund and municipal street fund. We have a PowerPoint as well as the 5-year forecast that we presented back in January, updated with new numbers that we have as well as the SEMCOG study findings. So we can go ahead and take a look at that as well. I was also requested at the last meeting to bring up a calculation on the cemetery mills of how much a millage would bring in and what kind of revenue that would look like. So I also have that on that spreadsheet as well. So first we can go through the general fund, and then we can answer any questions you have, and then move on to the forecast, and then we'll go back into municipal streets, and then look at the municipal street forecast. So we'll kind of go back and forth a little bit. Okay, so as I stated, we're going to go through the general fund and municipal street fund today. So for the general fund, just a high-level overview. Property tax, currently we're budgeting a 3% increase. We have gotten notice that Romeo will not have a rollback this year from the county preliminarily, which means that taxable value actually went up 5%. So we can adjust those numbers once we get some better taxable values from the townships. We haven't gotten those yet, but we have gotten information on the rollback from the county. So no rollback this year, it looks like. State shared revenue and local community stabilization revenue are expected to remain consistent with the prior year. We do have the most recent state shared revenue estimates in your packet. They usually are updated again in May, so we'll revisit those and keep checking for when they're updated to see if there's any significant difference. We'll probably only adjust the budget if there's a significant difference than what we're showing now. So for high-level expenses, the village clerk is requesting a part-time individual to work in and around the village hall, and no capital outlay has been requested for that department. Village hall and grounds, capital outlay requests of $55,000 for next year, and that includes $30,000 for a new roof and $25,000 for new windows on Village Hall. Police Department, capital outlay requests for 2026 come to about $96,000. These include new patrol rifles, vehicle graphic outfitting, taser purchase, Axon fleet cameras, accreditation with the Russell Group, which is split between 2 fiscal years. The Fire Department, we are still continuing our contract with Bruce Township, and per that contract, the cost of that will go up 6%, which comes to $826,000. Public Works, capital outlay requests are $700,000. That includes $150,000 for a new salt barn, $500,000 for a new driveway and parking lot at the DPW department, and $50,000 to replace the man doors and the floor drain within the department Public Works building. And then we do have a transfer out projected to the motor pool fund for $8,500 to help cover capital requests in the future. There is when we look at the forecast for what was requested, there is a large capital purchase, I think in 2028, of like $700,000 for a street sweeper, I believe. So we're just kind of anticipating that. So as you can see on this slide, we have a little bit of a use of fund balance recommended for the 2026 budget, and that's to cover the capital expenses that were just discussed, about $281,000. So ending fund balance projected of $4.4 million, down from 4.6 projected for 2025. So at this point, I'm done with the general fund kind of high-level overview. So if we want to go into the forecast, I can go ahead and pull that up. So it's kind of hard to see. There's a lot on here. So we've done a forecast through 2030. Most of the inflation rates on this forecast are about 3% because it's hard to predict year over year what inflation is going to do. So usually 3% is a good threshold just to get an idea and picture of what things will look like in the future. So going through this.
Can I interrupt real quick?
Yeah.
Is that in our packet?
No, it's only brought on screen. It's too hard to print, and it is just a forecast. So it's just for us to review and for you to kind of see the overall picture.
Okay.
So property taxes and most revenues we have increasing at about 3%. So you can see that we're looking at, from the 2026 recommended, which you do have up to 2030, only about like a $500,000 increase in revenue over those 5 years based on a 3% inflationary rate. Yeah. Like this, yeah. Let's see. Maybe a little bit less. There we go. So we got them all on there. These departments that you see here, so these are all the departments in the general fund. So village council, elections, et cetera. These are only operational expenditures. Capital has been broken out and put down below, so we can see the trends in those departments. So this is keeping staffing levels pretty consistent, along with increases on healthcare and wages. So then our total operating expenditures, we're projecting to increase about a little more than $500,000, so about $700,000, from $3.8 million in the recommended to $4.6 by 2030. So then when we get down here, this is where we've gone through and we've identified all the capital identified by both the departments, and then you'll see below highlighted in blue those identified in the SEMCOG study. We do have in here, this is a throw out number of $2 million to replace the parking lots in 2027. Until we get some better numbers, or how we're going to do that. Are we going to do all the parking lots at once? Are we going to do them piecemeal? How are we going to take care of that capital outlay? For now, it's just all stuck in 2027. And again, none of this is set in stone. This isn't the plan, so to speak. This is for you just to see how things will progress if we take down certain paths. And we can edit this as we go if you have scenarios you want to see. So getting down to all of the capital outlay that has been requested, we get down here. The blue is what was not requested, but reported in the SEMCOG study. So DDA parking lots, design and engineering. So obviously that would go through the design and engineering first, and then the $2 million concrete potential construction up top. and just some other minor repairs to the community center and village hall that were identified that can be pushed back. So when we get down to our fund balance, we can see that we're good for 2026. We're within our fund balance policy reserve that was set, I believe, a year ago. But then with that $2 million capital outlay, we kind of set ourselves out of our fund balance policy. So what is kind of the point of this? So the point of this is to show that if we want to do all of these capital items that have come out of the SEMCOG study, including the parking lots, not even considering the road project, we may need to look for an alternate source of funding or look to how we want to do these parking lots, because the parking lots seem to be the ones that's really causing this issue. So if I was to just take this out just to see.
But you don't have the roads in there.
I don't have the roads in here.
Because the roads are
The roads are $6 million. There's no way that the general fund can support that. So that'll be a separate discussion we can have when we get to the municipal street fund. So when I take out, oh, did that not work the way I wanted it to? Let me see. Oh, I know what happened. I have to take care of this formula because it's backing it out. Oh, must be the third one. Yeah. Oh, I gotta minus it. Sorry, that did not flow the way it was supposed to. There we go, okay. So when we finally do remove that $2 million of parking lot revenue or capital outlay, we're back in the black. However, as we said, this is still only about $1.1 million over fund balance policy. The streets come to about $6 million. So there is not a way for the general fund to fund that without depleting itself almost completely. So there's kind of two decision points that I think we don't have to make today, but we need to think about is the parking lots, how we want to fund redoing those. And then we can talk about, when we get to the municipal street fund in a few minutes, how we're going to fund the street projects, if at all. Where's that revenue going to come from? Because unfortunately it cannot come from general fund.
And then what is our policy? Can you reiterate the?
Yeah, so the fund balance policy that was adopted by the board about a year ago is that we have kind of two tiers. So the first tier is our absolute minimum we have to have on hand in case of an emergency is 3 months of operating expense, so 25% of expenses. The second tier is our big capital, something happened, we need to take care of it, 50% of expenditures. So we're trying to save about 75% of our expenditures in fund balance at any given time. If we violate tier 2, we have a caveat in there that we have, I believe it's 2 years within the budget to get it back up to where it needs to be. So it's okay for us to dip into this as long as we have a plan to get back into our thresholds that we want to be within. But we can't do, with the parking lot as you saw, it was consistently negative for 4 years in a row. So that's not going to be a possibility unless it's either spread out or we find another revenue source. So I'll go ahead and put the parking lots back in there.
If you think that will make sense to the story.
And then we can go back.
Okay. So if we look at municipal streets, so we have the same, yeah, I can blow it up. So we have the same inflationary factors on municipal streets that we do on general fund. Municipal streets takes in property tax revenue for both the millage as well as the bond payment. So we have 2 millages within municipal street fund. On here it's shown as one line just to summarize it, but there are 2 separate millages. And then LCSA money that every fund that has a millage gets, and then interest revenue that we've been seeing through the investments done by the village. So then moving on to the expenditures, we have any DDA-related items, so basically work that's done within the DDA by DPW gets charged to Municipal Street Fund in this Department 444. Any street lighting that gets done that is applicable is put here, as well as winter maintenance that can't be handled within the major and local street funds, village beautification, and then sidewalks. So the SEMCOG study did identify sidewalk repair as part of their study, and it was shown as like one giant expense done over a set amount of years. So what I've done in here is that I've simply just taken the total divided by 5, which was in there, and spread it over 5 years to do about, I think it's like $341,000 worth of sidewalk work a year based on that study.
And this is the downtown sidewalks, not residential.
I think it's both. I don't think it's just downtown.
I'd have to go verify, but no, I don't believe it's just downtown.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I have to look at it.
Mm-hmm. So when you have our admin and bond issuance costs on this line, and then here we have the values from the SEMCOG study. They differed a bit from the estimate that we got from HRC. So for now we have SEMCOG in here. I believe HRC's Southwest Quadrant was quite more. It was about 5 million something for this. So
yeah, the total was around 6.
6, yeah. There's 2 different numbers. So we use SEMCOG just to keep it consistent. It tells the same story though. And then we have our bond payments that are funded by the millage and our retiree healthcare. So by doing that, so the road fund can handle next fiscal year the sidewalk work that's recommended through the millage. It's able to handle it and still keep a fund balance of $12,000 left at the end of the year. However, when we add in the Northwest Quadrant repairs as well as the Southwest Quadrant estimate, you can see that it's consistently in it's in a deficit. It can't support it. So it needs an alternate revenue source if you want to have those street projects done.
Megan, when these are referencing SEMCOG numbers, is that the same presentation we saw last night?
Yes.
Okay, so last night she said residential wasn't included. That was a year or 2 down the road for whatever numbers she was looking at. So I don't know what set you pulled, but last night she said there was nothing residential. It was in the future. So that must be all downtown maybe?
Okay. I mean, I can pull it up. You can take a look. Sorry, it's kind of small. Let's see. So this was the number I used. So 1.7 million spread over 5 years for each of these. Sidewalks in the DDA. Okay, so it's only sidewalks in the DDA are $1.7 million.
Yeah, so that doesn't even address residential.
Okay. So the way to solve this is to either, if you want the general fund to support it, then the general fund needs to find an alternate source of money, or you can issue debt again to cover the remaining costs. Those are kind of your 2 options. Options in the general fund are you can try again for a Headley rollback that didn't pass last election season. There's special assessment millage or public safety special assessments to help support the fire and police costs that would free up money in the general fund to allow it to give it to the municipal street fund to cover that. Obviously there's grants, but those aren't very reliable if you're going to get them or not.
Yeah. I would think, given that the Headley didn't pass the first time, I don't see it passing again.
Right, I'm just
And-
saying, it is,
yeah.
it's an option. There's all
yes.
these different options to consider.
Special tax assessment for the fire department.
Yeah.
People are somewhat expecting it, to be honest, because of what we told them about signing this new contract.
And that's where I think, because the Headley being in the general, that's what we have the intention for, but anybody at any time could disperse that however they want from the general fund of however it allows. But by having a special assessment of this specifically only goes to police and fire, people know that that tax is not gonna go anywhere else than
Right.
police and fire.
Yeah.
And maybe there's more security and comfort in that, so we do it that way.
And they're much more successful overall, but you don't have to go to a vote of the people either to do the special assessment.
Are you sure for a village?
What? I can't hear you say.
I don't think you do.
At least,
Go to a vote of the people.
yeah, for special assessment millage, or not millage, public safety special assessment, you normally don't have to go to the vote of the people, it's just a vote of the board.
I just wanna make
We'll
sure, 'cause
double check that
villages
that's
are
correct for a
always
village, but
so different than
it
the
is
townships
for
and
a
the
city.
cities.
In a township, you can.
Yeah.
I'll double check it once.
There's no easy answer to any of this, but I'll say it again, I think we need to be looking outside the box and more creative, and what can we do to tighten the belts a little bit. The general economy is unpredictable. People can't keep reaching into their wallets, and although, like you pointed out, it's not gonna save us, but the thought process of we can spend on this and we can spend on that and we can do this and we can do that, and then we just go get more money from the residents. I'm very uncomfortable with that thought process when I know that we could be doing better within the budget. It might not be popular, but you know what, when you're at home and you're a mom and a dad and things have gotta be tightened up a little bit, it's a tough choice, and that's how I see this. It's a tough choice, it doesn't have to be forever, it doesn't have to be permanent, but I think we need to decide want versus need.
And I don't disagree, and if you could point out those areas, then by all means, but we have created this with that thought. And so if we're missing something that you're seeing, this is why we're here. If you see something that we're saying is a need and you don't think it's a need and more people want, let us know. I can't adjust
I don't think the police cars
it.
need new decals. I don't.
I'll speak to that because we spoke about this. Our police decals were flaking and falling off, and per the state, they need to be clearly identified. It's a violation. So they needed to be decaled.
So we just need our name on them.
It needs more than just your name. It needs to be clearly identified as a law enforcement agency. So, and then when we're talking about budgets and stuff, I think Plant Moran did a good job in January and also last week that we are already on a shoestring.
I don't think
We
so,
are.
and I'm gonna stop you right there with all due respect, because somebody spent $15 on hand lotion for the village. Who's authorized to buy hand lotion for Village Hall?
We replaced a hand lotion that we had for over a year. This is gonna last over a year.
Since when is the village residents responsible for those types of things for people? And I know it's not a popular question, but it's that thought process.
I get it.
We replaced the hand lotion. Well, what's next that you're gonna buy and have there for a year and go, well, we're just replacing it? Well, that doesn't make it okay.
So I guess I would go back to.
I have hand lotion in my desk at work and I bought it and brought it.
Okay. So we don't support our people adequately. Well, I'll go back to the drum that I've been beating on for a while. We don't pay them adequately. We don't support them correctly. They're not given all the resources that they need to do their jobs efficiently. We don't have enough support in the offices, no matter the department. And yet we want to talk about stripping even some creature comforts that make working and doing your job a little bit bearable in light of everything else. At the end of the day, I'll repay the $15 to the people then. Because to me, we are not gonna nickel and dime our way out.
I'm not
And
saying we
we've
are,
already-
I'm saying the thought process is flawed.
I understand what you're saying, Ms. Rosso. I understand. But I would argue, this is also a thought process coming from business. I would argue anything under $50,000 has been talked about with you guys, with the exception of, some new desks that needed to be purchased and some hand lotions and stuff like that. By and large, our departments, they put things together. They try to make dollars stretch. So when you're saying, it's a flawed thought process, I don't agree because, case in point, there was something at wastewater, I think it was gonna be like $5,000 or something, and they, with extra parts, built it for less than $1,000. Our people are keeping in mind that they don't have a lot of money to work with. It's not that. And then if you look at anything over $50,000, those are probably meaningful cuts, yes, but they're already necessary expenditures that have been thought out. So as where I don't disagree that we do have to start looking at where we can cut. I think the overall message, and it was iterated by Brian in January, the village does not have a spending problem. We probably could stand to spend a little bit more to create more efficiency. Again, going back to the cost-benefit model. People are doing their job more efficiently. We're making money on the back end. Our problem is purely revenue. We don't have money to sustain ourselves. And I constantly hear the board keep saying, we're at a $1.5 million deficit. No, that was bare minimum. In January, that 1.5 still showed in 3 years, we are dipping into our reserves. And I mean, honestly, we're probably at a $4 or $5 million if we want to be in the clear. And I don't disagree with you.
Do you agree with that $4 or $5 million is really more of what we're looking at?
I can pull up the forecast from the last meeting.
I think it depends on what you're
Yeah.
looking to support.
Yeah, if you're looking to support the street project and all of the capital that's necessary, most likely, yeah.
The other option we have is, unfortunately, to decrease services. So there isn't a leaf back.
I don't think
There
that's
isn't-
creative thinking either. I really don't, and it's not easy. I don't have all the answers, but did anyone say, okay, DPW needs a new driveway?
We've said it for multiple years and we just don't do it because it's not there.
Right.
They put
So-
the request out, doesn't mean we're gonna honor it.
Does it need to be concrete, asphalt, gravel, limestone?
It's my understanding that he went and looked at everything, because we did when we sat down to get it. It was, I will admit, when he said 500,000, I was like, and he's like, that was the cheapest.
For
Because
cheapest in what, concrete?
that's all he said was cheapest. I didn't.
So we don't even know what we're working with here. And that's kind of my issue. We're being told they need 500,000 and we don't even know what product it is. Is there another option that's as good, that's not gonna fall apart fast? Like, it's that kind of thinking that we're not doing, and it's disturbing to me. It really is. And I don't know if I'm the only one speaking up, but
I mean, I think we have to start identifying some specific things that we can cut if we're gonna talk about trimming the fat.
Well, yeah,
Turn your
'cause, I mean,
microphone on.
I just wish there was maybe some more specific things that you could identify that we
I
could
do
trim.
too, but we're not getting the information to know. To me, this is just a very general overview of, I've made budgets before, and you look at what it is you want and need. Each department contributes what it is, and they give you a couple of different estimates and bids. You have all the facts in front of you.
Mm-hmm.
These are, I don't have half the facts I need to make tough decisions.
there's no possible way for us to go get bids, put out RFPs, and then come back to a budget and say, we put the line item in here, we still have to follow our process, and then we still approve that. So if we don't have to spend the 500 when we get there, we make that choice. But what we're looking at is trying to make a budget so that we can at least mold it into what we, not a worst-case scenario.
So we're just pulling numbers out of the air. And I'm not saying you have to get 3 companies and 3 bids, but if you look online, I need 700 square feet of concrete for a parking lot. Google will tell you approximately how much that
And
will
we've done
cost.
that, and unfortunately, this is the lowest, the best number.
But Jamie said you don't know if it's concrete, asphalt, limestone. if
Whether
that's
I know the product or not, that is their intention, and they went and did the calculations.
For that one product, no other options.
I would, knowing our DPW, I would think that they did their due diligence. I wouldn't think that he just brought us, because again, everybody has kept in mind where the village is at. They understand where the village is at. Everybody, all of our departments, continually try to make do with what they have, to make a dollar stretch. I understand where you're at, Ms. Rosso, and you wish we had more evidence, or not evidence, but information, and I don't necessarily disagree, but also to that point of, whenever I've done budgets, you sometimes do budget out worst-case scenarios so that if worst case comes to pass, you at least know that you're budgeting that out. If we budget on the lowest, like for instance, I just had this conversation in email back and forth with Danielle today and our IT. I gave a number based on what I believed computers would be at the time. Computers and tech have gone up 20 to 46%. So if we're basing assumptions on worst case, and you hope you don't hit it, because then you have overage that you can roll back in, awesome. But right now, as we're in December, we could get nice machines that would future-proof the village for quite some time, so we're not buying computers and then holding off and buying computers every 2 years. It's gonna last us at least 10 or 15. Where it might have been 2,500 a machine, we're now looking in excess of 4,000 a machine. So, and that was my fault. I just gave a straight up number and I should have given a ballpark.
But that's
the
exactly
same
what
thing.
we're doing here again. We're ballparking everything, and that is not a smart way.
We have
to
the
do a
most
budget.
information we've ever had. With the CIP, we have more information and more things that actually exist. We didn't even know there were these needs that now we know. We are creating a budget, not just.
We didn't know we needed roads and sidewalks? What needs did you identify
No,
that we
but
didn't know?
we knew we needed them, but now I have a number for it. That's what you're
Ballpark.
saying is,
She
I knew
pulled
I
it out
needed a
of the air.
sidewalk, and if I go to the people and say, hey, we know we need sidewalks, they go, well, prove it, or for how much? So we went and did that.
And I don't.
And now that we did that, you're saying, that's still not good enough. What else
No,
would
I'm
you
not
like?
saying it's not good enough. I'm saying if you want me to spend $500,000 on a parking lot, or at least decide if that should be in a budget, I kind of need a little more information.
Well, we need to see what it all looks like together. We need to put the whole puzzle together, and then we go back and go, that didn't end well. Now we go back and we start pulling those things out.
And I also don't think it's.
We're backing into a budget.
I also don't think it's fair to paint it as just pulling numbers out of thin air, because this is as best, is it a little bit of a guess? Maybe, but it is as close to solid as you can get. It's an educated guess based on what they know to be true, cost of material, what the going rates are. They've called around, they've found out. It's not just us going, well, I think that's probably going to be 500,000. I mean, there is a process to them bringing us
So where
this
is
things.
that?
It's in the SEMCOG study is where he's
SEMCOG said it was gonna be 500,000 for that parking lot?
I don't know about that one, but I know all of these outlays
In the
that
blue.
you put in here in blue are from SEMCOG.
Okay, so
Not
I'm using
literally
the parking lot.
SEMCOG, it's the SEMCOG grant. So it's
Okay,
not that.
So I'm using that parking lot as an example. And tell me if I'm wrong. If we're gonna make a budget, don't you want that kind of information? What are you thinking about? What's the ballpark? What are your options? I have never gone into a budget and gone, well, here's the worst case scenario. Now how can we back into that, and where do we get the money from?
But
It
you
blows my
also-
mind.
Our understanding, this is a very typical budget process, so.
And look where it's gotten us.
So you're going through it, and the process is that you have identified that you are going to do a study to provide you with this information. So I think this is a responsible approach to look and say, we've asked for this information. If we were to put this study into play, this is what happens to it. There will be choices that have to be made. So part of that decision is, I mean, we are seeing changes every week on cost of information. So I do agree, like, to go out and fully bid out or have an engineer do full cost of all this will be expensive.
I did not ask for that. I said, go on Google and price out your parking lot with 3 different page amount. And that's not even up there as far as I can tell.
I'm sorry, I'm not sure which parking lot we're
The
specifically.
We're talking about
$500,000
TPW.
So this was a request from the department head.
They've asked for it
That
for
they've been
multiple
asking for
years,
multiple
and we
years.
have
So is-
not done it because it does not work. It's still a need. It's kind of like your unfinished business still stays on the agenda. It didn't go away, we didn't fix it, it's still a need, and actually every year it increases. So it's still there. We approve it or we don't. Last year we didn't, the year before we
How do I
didn't.
know I can't approve it if I don't know what the options are?
Right, but
I
that's-
guess I'm the one struggling with this thought process of
I think
more
the process
taxes
is
on the
though-
residents and not looking at what we're actually doing. And God love you, Plant Moran, but we've been doing this for years and look at where we're at. This is not working for us. And we're spending triple the money on accounting services.
I think,
And I
I
would
think the
even
difference, I
been
think the
with the
difference
village
is,
It's
since
hard for me to sit here
2022.
and say, yeah, let's just keep doing this the same way. Something's got to change.
And it's not just the budget. We have not been taking care of our assets.
Right.
So we're at the point that they are all breaking. And so to just say it's been poor budgeting all these years is not accurate.
I didn't say that single statement.
and the
I'm
problem-
looking at all of the pieces of the puzzle.
and the problem is too, it's not on them. What you're talking about, the longstanding issue with this village has always been, the village has been reactive. It has never been proactive. For the first time, we're trying to be proactive. And then saying that backing into a budget is no way to operate, I mean, I would say that the Forbes 500 would disagree with you. That is how you identify risk, that is how you mitigate risk, is identify your risks. And even in budgets, you identify your risk and now you can walk it back. That's what I'm doing through a process with my office, is identifying worst case scenario. Now I can walk it back to finally where I am, so I understand all of the stopgaps that I need to put in place so that I never fall off the cliff. We have never done that as a village.
Okay. So do you agree backing into the budget is I'm off base and that this is really,
I guess I don't see it as backing into, I see it as, we've done a study to see what the needs of the village are. We're looking at what that means to our budget. Our budget can't support that, so there are decisions that this council needs to make to decide what priorities are.
I don't know that we can't support a little bit more of that until,
You can't support all of that capital.
I didn't say all.
So,
That's the thing, everybody's talking in absolutes, and I'm not. I am not talking in absolutes. There has got to be a little bit more money in here or other creative ideas. I brainstormed with someone from the village when we talked about the parking lots, and I'll throw it out there. There's a million yes and no's to it. I said, well, why don't you maintain the parking lots? Well, they don't belong to us. Okay, but do they have to belong to you? No. Okay, so do we lease them to you for $1 a year and then you'll take care of them? Well, maybe. We could look at our budget and then, so why isn't anyone like thinking of stuff like that or doing stuff like that? Like, there's no,
Well,
I have a question.
yeah.
Do we really need to have our own police department?
So here's the thing, I've looked into
I know a lot of
this.
cities have contracted with the counties. They've gotten rid of the police department.
I have studies that have been done. You can look at New Haven, most recent. Look in Oakland County too, the same, because Macomb modeled their practice after what Patterson put in place in Oakland years and years ago. You save money the first couple of years, but it's like an ARM mortgage.
It's like our fire contract.
It's a variable rate. You know what you're gonna pay your first 2 or 3 years, and then it explodes. And oftentimes, it's way more than you were paying your current force. And then on top of that, so not only are you paying more, oftentimes your services have gone down because you don't have as many people. The response time has gone down. So you're paying more and you don't have enough money to even start another force if you wanted to. That's actually a huge problem in Oakland right now. There was just a big article on it, like South Lyon, Wixom, all of them. Last year, their cost for service, and they dropped a deputy, went up 13.9%. This year, it went up 14.8%. So it is going up, and their services are going down. And here's the thing too: if we're talking about a special assessment, right? Let's call it what it is. It'll be a tax for police and fire. It is what it is. It's fine. But you're going to be paying a tax either which way you go, because if we drop services and it affects our insurance rating in the village, you're going to be paying that tax for your insurance premium. It's just, it is what it is.
I only ask that because I've had a lot of people ask me that over the years.
Yeah.
Why do you have your own police department?
Right now, we have a response time of between, I think, 60 seconds and 90 seconds. If you have one officer, county, and I love the county, I work with them during Peach Fest, they're good guys, but they are spread thin as well. And, you know, right now, the northern guy, who kind of just patrols everybody right now, case in point, last year, I was in dispatch while we were looking at helping the dispatchers at least replacing the chairs that they have because they've ridden them to death. They are falling apart. While we were there was a welfare check called in for Bruce. The Macomb County guy that patrols the whole area, the one guy that goes from Richmond to Bruce, was on a call and said it would be 35 to 40 minutes and asked if RPD would mind running up to the house to do this welfare check. And that's what we're kind of asking. If we get into that realm, that might be what we're
You're gonna get what you
we're
pay
going to
for.
get.
Well, it kind of comes into like the fire department.
Mm-hmm.
They kind of have you over a barrel. You know, I mean,
You have no control over the cost.
It's been enough years, you've dispersed everything, you've sold the building. You've done everything you could to get rid of all the cost of it. Now, what do you do when they raise the price
And then-
14%?
Yeah, and
Think
then your
about
the cost of participation is like 3 times of what you're paying now for you to start it new again. It's just.
And think
Well,
about
yeah, you
what
wouldn't
goes
wanna
on in the
start it again.
village. All of our events,
Yeah.
Tilson Street, anytime we have an event and close down Main Street, you would be calling out and paying overtime or extra, and would there really be a cost savings? You're gonna sacrifice the quality.
Right.
So could you? Technically, the answer would be yes. It's possible. Would I recommend it? Absolutely not.
Village say you probably would save money for 3-4 years, like we did with the fire department. We did really well for a long time with that.
In the recent few months, I guess maybe back to January, I don't know. If I recall correctly, did the employee health benefits go up 14%?
The
Is it-
cost of insurance.
Yeah, the insurance, I believe, did the health
Cost of
insurance.
insurance went up.
Yes.
And the village pays that?
Yes.
Is there something in their contract that says how much that the village will pay if it goes up?
Yes, there is a bargaining component to those contracts that state if it surpasses a certain rate in 1 year, but then they can flex it to any 3-year span. And I believe we were still within the 3-year span. I mean, that might be something we can look at as well, when you're talking about cuts and stuff like that.
I'm talking about using our money smarter.
No, and I get it, I get it, and that's what I'm speaking to. And we talked about this after another meeting. First off, we only offer one healthcare package to our employees. A lot of municipalities that I know, and I don't mean to keep harping on Oakland, but Oakland's one of the ones that I'm very familiar with because my wife works for Oakland. They offer 3 or 4 different ones, but there's a cost of participation. There's, you might spend $75 a month. If you want the Cadillac plan, you're spending $300-400 a month, but you're cost sharing. It might, we've talked about we need to address wages because we are 20 to 30% below peers in any of our departments. And I know there is an argument there, okay, well, you're just giving them more money, but then it's costing them more money, but I don't really think there's not this large disparity. We're not giving you $300 a month more and then charging you $300. Yeah, you're coming out of pocket and it helps a little bit. And yeah, I don't disagree. In benefits and stuff, there's probably things there that we can tweak to where we are not negatively impacting everybody and while giving them options and still looking out for the village fiscally. But
so
like
who's
I said,
monitoring that to know that we aren't just absorbing it year to year? And
it's one of the things that when I first came
but
in,
you've only been here a few
I
months.
looked at, correct,
So-
but I've looked at the benefits. I've been having multiple conversations with our benefits supplier.
Not the benefit
and
people,
finding-
the percentage it went up, and at what point are we reconciling with the union that, okay, it's gone up too much now, and now you need to start, has anyone
Once it
done
gets
that?
outside of the window, like I said, you have either it's by year or they can, if we come back and say, yes, you've gone, I forget what it is it like 8% or something like that? I'd have to look back at the contract. But if it goes up over 8% for 1 year, they then can come back and argue, what is the 3-year average then? And if it's underneath that threshold, not that 8%, it's a blended rate, I think it's like 23, something like that. If it's under that, then it's still our cost. But I have been, ever since I came on board, I've been looking at that. There's multiple things I've been looking at, like I said before. And to Danielle and Carrie's point, thinking outside of the box also, it's gonna require, and I've said this before, everybody on this board, not just brainstorming, seeing what we can cut, but what are our options out there? Low interest, no interest funding through grants, everything. I sat and had a meeting with someone from the governor's office and was given some things to look out for. Grants.gov, everybody can go on. I have found, granted, the window's closed and the problem with the halt on all the grant funding, they didn't extend the windows, the application windows. But I mean, I've found $400 million that we could apply for. And I've spoken to people, contacts of mine, who work for the IRS, who oversee how grants are reported back to the federal government. And it was explained to me that as you're battling some of these larger entities, because that was my concern, one of them was 150 million, right? And I'm like, we're saved, we're done, never mind. But multiple municipalities are, New York, LA, all of them are going for the same money. And what it was explained to me is, yeah, LA has a $28 billion operating budget because they can support it. The Village of Romeo is hurting. Grants are more so geared towards the smaller guy because we don't have the tax base. But there's only so much that the president and I can do because, to use Matt's analogy, drinking water from a fire hose, when I first got in, I've taken over companies that are defunct. You don't buy a company that's not hurting, right? Usually. And I've dealt with bad situations. And coming in here, I was like, this is not good. I was kind of taken aback. And the reason being is that, and it's not the accountants, they're doing the best they can with what they have. Much like our entire staff. Do what you can with what you have. And that is a failing model too. When we're talking about failed models, that is the biggest failed model in all of this. That is the biggest cardinal sin in this village. But when you look at these things, and I've gotten away from some of my business practices because you're trying to just tread water and get just a tiny bit of air at any point that you can. And yeah, the president and I have identified grants before, but I'm guilty of this. I'll see something, I'll be like, oh, that's awesome. And then a million fires start up. I'm not being facetious. I'm not being hyperbolic. When I first came on, there was like a lawsuit every other day I was fighting. We started clearing them, and we were clearing them rapidly, and then something else happens. And then something else happens. And then we get, like I've said before, weaponized grievances. And all these things just start pulling you away from the other meaningful work that we're trying to do, which literally is save the village. I'm not here, I said this before, I'm fortunate. I'm fortunate to be able to say this, and I'm not boastful or braggadocious. I am not here for a paycheck. I am here because I felt the need to step up when no one else was. Because this village needs people who care about it, who are going to do the job. I am not here for a paycheck. I'm here to take care of the village. But in doing so, I am realizing everything that is years and years and years of mismanaged practices that were born from the mentality of make do with what you have. And I still argue both can be true. We need to spend a lot of money while simultaneously not having a lot of money, but the hopes are is the cost benefit aspect of it. When people are better supported and have the resources, they free up now a cost per task that may have taken 6-7 hours now maybe takes 3 hours. So we're not bleeding, we're not hemorrhaging money in man hours and stuff like that. But at some point, do we have cuts? Invariably. There's probably a million cuts we can make. Do I think any of them are going to be absolutely meaningful? I'm hard pressed to say yes, looking at everything that I've been looking at. And I take the lead from Brian, we could stand to spend more money. We don't have a spending problem. We have a revenue problem. We have an earnings problem. We need more money. And it's historic.
The past, instead of saying at the end of the year, we say, look how much money we saved. No, look how much you neglected to take care for the village.
I mean,
when we have a police force that we gave money in a budget, and then you see that they never used it, and then hear that everything's breaking and falling, well, that was not.
What was it, 600 grand given back in 5 years?
If we cared for the things that we have.
I think we should let her finish her presentation at least.
Yes, we hijacked you, I'm sorry.
Well, no, this is great discussion, and it's kind of the discussion we wanted to have of this is what the picture looks like for 2026. We're still in balance, we're still within our policy, but it's those future years that need to be considered of how we're going to take care of the village and take care of the capital assets that have been identified that need correcting and need to be fixed or purchased.
And we finally have the ability to be looking forward so that what we're doing and approving this year, we can affect change in the future. Whereas in the past, we literally would only be looking at right now, saying we're making fund balance, we're great, let's go.
Mm-hmm. And I will speak to the way the budget is, the numbers in the budget. So we do usually have a little bit of cushion in each department, and the reason for that is so we don't get audit findings. So if you go over budget on a department in your audit, you will get an audit finding and you'll need to have an explanation with the state. So we do bake in a little bit of cushion in each one to protect ourselves for that one invoice that comes in, and I've had it happen before. $20 invoice comes in that nobody was expecting, and we wanted to be right on with the budget, and that $20 gave us an audit finding. Do you want an audit finding for $20? No. So that's why we have some of those cushions in there, to protect ourselves from that. We also do that within the amendment. So usually the last amendment we give you of the year, we go through when we have our projection, we update it, we look at compared to the budget, and then we say, how much buffer do we have in each department, and do we think that's okay? To just protect ourselves from those one-offs that come in through the door that just aren't predicted. So no, it's not an exact budget of we're gonna buy 10 pencils at 20 cents a pencil equals this. That's not how we budget. We look at, okay, operating expenses have consistently been about this every year. They've increased this much every year. We take out any giant purchases that we know aren't gonna recur. Okay, so we think it's gonna be about this. Because I can't go to every single department and ask them, how many reams of paper are you gonna order next year? They don't know that.
I'm not saying you should, I'm saying
Okay.
we should have internal buying systems, purchasing power. Jamie went through the effort of joining some group for the government, and we're buying paper off of Amazon for more money than at the store. So it's not you running around,
Okay.
it's every department needing to say, and us looking at the big picture of where is our group purchasing power, what can we do different?
So I do purchase in bulk. The paper is not more than at the store. I would like to say that.
I'm sorry, you what?
I would like to say that the paper is not more than at the store. I buy in bulk, so I get like
Then we also
15
run into
reams
where
at
do
a
you
time.
store it?
Yeah, that's the
For,
bigger
like,
problem,
Jamie's
is where do I
stocking.
store it? I could store it upstairs, but I'm not humping a 100-pound package of paper up the stairs. I'm just not, I have other things I could be doing, and I'm not gonna ask anybody in the office to do it. But yeah, it's, so the purchasing, the GSA, we've looked at things through that. I mean, again, I bought the desks through that. The desks at a 70% reduction. And I know where you're at with that, and I would argue that these have 20-year warranties. Anything breaks, they replace it for 20 years. Rather than going to Facebook Marketplace, where our entire office has been furnished, and I can appreciate the frugality in that, but at the same time, we're spending $300-400 a desk, and it breaks inside a year, which has happened to those other desks, which is why they're just making do. You're not getting anything, and if we're spending that every year, you quickly surpass. I mean, and I'm sorry, Danielle, I'm sorry, I keep
It's okay.
But like, even to that point, you guys passed a budget amendment for new trucks, and I asked Chief today if he can get me, because he and the rep spoke, give me finance options as well, because they have 1, 3, and 5 year low and no interest financing as well. Get me that, because could we go out and spend, you guys have allocated the money, yes, but if we can free up some capital other places to where it's not all going out the window at once, that might make a little bit of sense as well. So instead of $170,000, we're paying $180,000 after interest, but all the other things you could do while making those payments and all the other areas that you can affect with having that freed up capital, I think it's worth at least looking at. So I think, again, going back to it, I don't know if there's meaningful cuts, but, and a little to your point, I think there's a meaningful way to spend the money outside of what we've traditionally thought on how to spend the money. If it means we can finance at either no interest or even just a little bit of interest, cool, but to your point with the parking lots, the law is actually quite clear. Since that is a tax-funded entity and they are a public entity, the DDA, they cannot spend money on parking lots they do not own. The same reason why the village.
I didn't say it was DDA, I said I was meeting with somebody.
Well, it was inferred, I guess, so that's fine. When it was back in the day when the village talked about paving the parking lot on Church Street, the other, with the church. Yeah, the village couldn't because it was private property. You can't spend public dollars on something you don't own. So whether it's, I mean, I don't know who else you'd be having that conversation with, so I'll just go on the assumption it's DDA. DDA cannot spend their tax dollars on upkeeping a parking lot and being the sole upkeep of that parking lot when it is not theirs
So why don't they own it?
I
Why
guess
can't
that's,
they own it? It's for the businesses, is what we keep saying.
that's a discussion for the board.
The only one they owned was
Yeah, and what,
back in the south.
and what happened to that? And what happened then? The village had to come sit.
It's the same thing as parks, right? Like, we got a park, Trailside Park, that's a private entity. No one takes care of it. I mean, this is getting in the weeds, but that's kind of my biggest apprehension about green space. I love a green space. We are ultimately, in the end, going to be liable for that space.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you embracing creative thinking and kind of not the same old, same old.
I mean, there's no benefit to me coming into this position and continuing the practices that got us to right where we are.
So the budget before you has minimal capital in it. As far as the next year, you know, a lot of my communities, what is hopeful at this point, and I'm not saying it has to be tonight, but is to take the study, and you need to do it timely, right? Because the study's gonna expire. There's gonna be, the costs are gonna continue to go up. Like, now is the moment where you have the most reasonable dollars, and 6 to 12 months down the road, you'll be back at a point where those estimates are gonna change. But to almost do like a red, yellow, green on the priorities to help understand, like, what are the priorities of this body to move forward? Is it the parking lots? Is it sidewalks? Is it, you know, different things? And I think that exercise of going through, these are all the capital things before us. No, this isn't priority, put it in, you know, put it in yellow or red, we can't do this at all, helps to frame up, like, what are we looking to say that our priorities are, what are, and those costs are, to help figure out what needs to happen on either the revenue or the expenditure side to get there. Because I think without that prioritization, it's going to continue to be very difficult to help do the things you want to do for the village.
I agree.
And just to kind of reiterate, so for the street projects, for the northwest and southwest quadrant, we do not have that budgeted for fiscal year 26 because we would be budgeting a deficit, which we're not allowed to do. So that is a discussion that needs to happen of, are you going to continue the road project? If so, how are you going to pay for it? That's kind of the biggest question that's out there, because general fund cannot, so that's not an option. And it's not in fiscal year 26.
It's not.
The capital for the roads is not in fiscal year 26 because it's not sustainable for the fund. So it's been pushed into 27 on this forecast. If you choose to bring it forward, then we need to have an additional revenue source with it. So just something to think about. That's all the PowerPoint. We basically talked about everything that I had on Fund 204. We went through it, so I'm not going to go back to it. Is there anything else on general fund or Fund 204 that we want to look at before I go into the cemetery rubbish mills that I was requested to bring up today?
While that is being thought on, if you don't mind, I would want to circle back to the question on the special assessment. So I was looking, and Jamie and President Hussein, I will send you this document, but you are an incorporated village, to my knowledge. And so incorporated villages and cities with a population under 15,500 are not required to seek voter approval prior to creating an SAT, but you always have the option to do so.
No matter if it's general law or home rule.
It just says
Incorporated,
villages,
okay.
Yeah. Yep, I'll share this with you.
What was the amount requested for the part-time individual to work around the village hall?
Yeah, let's bring that up. So, $17,890. I'm sorry, $25,792. My eye's in the wrong spot.
And just to be clear, with that position, they would be helping with payroll because nobody knows that job. If Rebecca gets sick, God forbid it's on a Tuesday, no one gets paid. I'm trying to make up some of the gap there, but with everything else, it's hard to try and learn that while, again, putting out the fires. But also that person is going to float around the village as well and go, DPW needs help, clerical help every once in a while. Al at wastewater really needs clerical help because he's pretty much a one-man show. He's his own assistant, he's the supervisor, he oversees everything, he has to test everything, has to sign off, be final say. Like, when he was telling me, I'm like, might make sense if we share. Like, at this point, you need out of, like, I wish I had an extra day a week. I could go out there and help Al. They need help out there. So that is some of it as well, is not only the clerical aspect at the village, the record retention that we're trying to get done slowly, but also help some of our other departments who are spread way too thin. I mean, you look at DBW, Chris over there, no one knows what Chris does.
Yeah, we cannot cross-train within our departments because we have, our employees are so busy just doing their job. There's no time to bring them over here to train them someone else's job, because who backfills theirs? If nobody knows that, like, we literally, there's no sharing.
I mean, my biggest fear right now, I will say, since I've been here, and I had had access to the building department prior, being with ZBA and everything. I will say, and this is, and I've talked to Miss Wilson before about this, this is not a knock on her. This is, she had to do what she had to do to make life work in that position, given very limited resources. And she has done a phenomenal job. But there are things that could be done more efficiently, but it was through, again, situational management that I'm just gonna get this box checked off and move on because I have to. So, and that's how she just kept getting piled on and piled on and piled on, because it was, hey, do one more thing, do one more thing. And she would clear it quickly so she could get back. With Sarah on board right now and having 2 people in that position, operating that the building department efficiently, it's night and day right now.
When people make comments, they wish the village could get their stuff together. Well, this is why, because you're expecting one person to juggle too much. That's why it continually falls. If they don't have proper support, you're going to get the same, why can't the village get their stuff together?
And the village used to have very robust departments. Like I said, I went through the meeting minutes all the way back to the 40s. I mean, as the building department developed and expanded, at one point it was like 3 or 4 people. Payroll and HR had different people, and now everybody in that office wears like 3 or 4 hats.
And the thought was, in being part-time, then we don't have incurring cost of healthcare.
We do save money in benefits and stuff. I mean, there's a strong argument to have 2 part-timers that do nothing but float inside the village to at least help. Yeah, we're at 1 right now.
I'm all for that. If we need more help from the offices, I'm 100% behind that.
I mean, it's more so like, and I'm sure things will shake out and develop as the floater goes, right? Because you don't know what you don't know. If you're already, again, going back to the analogy of treading water and just trying to get air, and I said this to our HR and payroll person, I said, you need help? And she's like, I feel like I'm okay. I said, you don't know what reprieve looks like. When you're finally supported, I guarantee you, because I've seen it, I know this to be true, I've seen it on the private end of things, you're going to have an epiphany and you're going to have a moment and go, how the heck did I ever operate inside of that realm? And you're going to realize that you weren't even treading water, you were drowning, but you had no other option than to kick as hard as you could. We need to start supporting in that way too, so that, again, it goes back to the cost benefit side of things. Things are being done better, more efficiently, and we can help people. And God forbid someone gets sick on a Tuesday, we're not gonna have every employee in the village revolting against us because they didn't get paid.
Or go on vacation, she can have.
Yeah, she can have, if she goes on vacation, she has to go around. I either have to leave Tuesday night or be back by Monday night. And I'm like, that is a horrible vacation schedule. But it's where we are. So it's in the essence of trying to adequately support, you know, this entire organism. So we're moving forward in a way where everything is as efficient and supported as humanly possible. I keep saying sorry, I'm so sorry. I keep hijacking your meeting.
It's not my meeting, it's everybody's meeting. Okay, so we answered that question. Was there any other questions in the general fund or municipal street fund? Okay. And we do have that meeting scheduled for the 30th, so as you go through the budget.
Just say, if I can have one thing.
Yeah.
Planning commission and different salaries for different boards, would looking somewhere there be a
Sorry, I'm trying to get to it.
We never used to,
There
it's
we
only
go.
been 2 or 3 years we've been planning commission members. What do we do now? ZBA also?
I think ZBA.
DDA does all, it volunteers, tree board volunteers.
I think we should just cut it all completely. We can't be crying about, not to pick on you, but lotion and be getting, you know, $3,000 a year per trustee. It's just not right. So, I mean, that's gotta go. I don't wanna speak on behalf of Planning Commission and ZBA, but that's gotta go too. You know, starts with us at least.
Yeah, I mean, if we wanna cut our meeting pay, we cut our meeting pay.
What's that, $30,000 a year? $20,000 a year?
Ask Danielle.
Oh,
What is
yeah,
that?
let me get up there.
I don't get
For
paid
all-
for meetings, so I'm already doing my part.
So, yeah, the total for wages looks to be about like 20,000, about, a little more than that.
For which, is it?
For
it's
the
combined
Village
over.
Council Department 101.
And then if you throw in there planning,
Mhm.
ZBA.
Planning is is more, or, you know, a little bit less, but about the same. 11,000 plus paying the tax on there.
Yeah, I mean, that should be non-negotiable. It stinks, but.
Well, they never had it before. It's a privilege
Yeah.
to sit on the board, to be appointed to help. It's a very important role to plan the future, the zoning of the village.
Mm-hmm.
And zoning is about $2,100.
Training and education is another one that we could, I would prefer we look at to trim a little. You know, unless you have somebody new to the job that's learning everything.
Yeah, we often have a lot of leftover.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
We often have a lot of leftover.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's hopeful that people would want to educate themselves, but, you know,
Mm-hmm.
What's the current budget? What is it at now?
So training and education's in each different department, so I'd have to go to each department, but for example,
Just for
on,
us.
yeah, oh, for you, for the commission, or I'm sorry, the board?
Yeah.
Trying to get there. Education and training, $4,200. It looks like so far, $2,100 has been spent.
I mean, the first year, I did present to the Lions Club, hey, this is what it cost us, and things at the village, when Peach Fest is here, presented them with a cost. They looked at it, and they looked at it. We could present and push harder to see if we can't get some shared cost, and maybe not just the Lions, but also the DDA, in that it benefits the businesses. And and that the residents are paying for the extra garbage pickups and the extra police hours.
I thought the Lions paid for the extra police
You're here as the
activity.
clerk.
I know. No, I'm just,
Yeah.
I am a Lions member, so but I am familiar with what we as the club pay the village. I mean, we pay for a majority of the dumpsters, I think, that are throughout the village, the porta-johns. It is about a $20,000 investment.
Because you choose to have an event here that brings people here.
Well, no,
If we didn't have that event, we wouldn't need those items.
No, I would say that we could still just have the event on our field. The village decides to participate, being the businesses and Main Street, and, you know, the chamber took over one of the parades, and Parks and Rec has a parade, and all those things. And so, again, I'm in a little bit, I don't want to speak out of turn because I am the clerk, I'm also a Lions member. But it is a considerable investment that the Lions put into the village. And, you know, that's stuff that
What is the investment?
I said, I think it's in the tune of about 20 grand. And
But what do we get for that? You're
You don't
telling me
get-
we
you
get
get-
garbage cans and toilets during an
Yeah.
event. We literally,
yeah, you
What
don't
does the
have
village
people defecating in the streets.
we clearly disagree.
I mean, you have an entire DDA, a CBD, that benefits, that is their Black
But the residents,
Friday.
the residents that pay for this, what is the
Mhm.
benefit?
I mean, in 1962,
Oh, God.
the Peach Fest was gonna go down, and the Lions Club said, we'll take it over. They took it from the then DDA, the village, and the Farmers Association, I forget what they were called, but it was like a Farmers Association. And they took it over to still be an event that is the second oldest festival
And I
in
love
the
that,
state.
And I love that for Romeo,
But
but we can't, we're looking at what we can and can't afford.
Maybe instead of discussing it now, we can put together some of the costs that we think we occur during it. We can
I mean, I
present
can
it to the
definitely get a
Lions.
spreadsheet and show you.
Maybe not.
Because we don't.
Someone else put it together.
I mean, yeah, probably not me.
And
It would
then
not be good.
trustee care, last year was the first, I think last year was the first year we actually invoiced the Lions Club for the police overtime.
I thought so, okay.
Yeah,
And
that's
we-
the
and we
first
did-
time was last year.
We definitely have improved the relationship.
And we wanted, because we historically, we've hired McComb.
Right.
And one of our main guys, he was one of the main lieutenants, he retired, and we looked at it as this festival grew, we needed more officer presence, and we said, you know what? We're about keeping the money at home, let's throw PD a bone, let's try to mend that bridge that had been broken years ago. And our guys did a phenomenal job.
It worked good.
It went off without a hitch. Any issues that happened, our guys worked alongside Macomb. Because I oversee security, and I couldn't be more proud of our guys and the professionalism that they showed and the care they showed for the event goers, and it was phenomenal. And this year, we've talked about expanding even more and bringing on more guys. So, but yeah, I mean,
Just trying to be creative.
I get it.
Okay, so just to be clear, so would you like to see a budget represented without,
See what the cost of the salaries.
Okay.
Reducing some of the training. What else did we talk about?
Don't touch my Peach Fest. I think, yeah, I mean, one of the biggest weighted salaries on planning though too, and correct me if I'm wrong, that's the actual planner, having her come out.
yeah, her contracted services, yes.
But I'll tell you what, I mean, given what the village is not a typical
Mhm.
anything, any lot, any,
We need Karen, yeah.
well, we need a somebody. Can't just
Yeah.
get rid of them. I'm not saying it has to be her.
Yeah, so she's projected to be about $16,000 for next year.
I'd like to see the inclusion of a salary for a grant writer, even if it's part-time, probably appropriately part-time for our size. But, I mean, we don't have enough staff to to go get the extra bundles of copier paper upstairs, let alone spend time.
Salary in a few months.
Well, there's
Maybe.
two ways of doing that, though. We can either hire someone, or, and Danielle and I have spoken about this multiple times, entering into a contract with a grant writing house, and you're probably gonna be spending, probably $5,000 a month.
How does that work? Do they share multiple municipalities at
Well,
once?
it's like a
or-
firm. It's a firm of grant writers. So they have teams that work on your grant. I mean, when you're talking about anything over, I'd say probably $1.5 million or greater, that is a full-time job to track. Not only track, I mean, the biggest pitfall in grants is the after-funding tracking and reporting, and making sure that you're reporting that you spent it correctly and hitting those deadlines. Because that's, from what I've found from the other municipalities, even when I went to the Institute and talked to some of them that are dealing with that was their pitfall. When they didn't report on time, and then they get penalties, they get audited what they were actually spending it on. And it just became a massive headache, and I was like,
But either way,
that's something I definitely don't
we
want to
can
do.
make the choice of which one we want to pick, but what would be, we have to figure out a number.
And sometimes you can work into when you're requesting, like if you get to that point, some administrative costs. So, you can have someone do, like, we do that for Lever Funds, the accounting and whatever for it, but you have to just make sure on the front end you try to get, if you can. It's not always, it's a downfall of a lot of grants. So you're absolutely right. It's a ton of administration, but they don't always incorporate that, and people get trapped. We've had clients that just send money back, that, not because we were watching it, but because it's a lot to do.
Yeah, one of the municipalities I talked to, they said it's similar to like a bounty. They're working on contingency. You can find these, but they said some of them, the one guy I was talking to is from a village in Illinois, and he said what they found is they had to enter into contract first, and then when they proved they're actually going after all these, then they would work on contingency. But a lot of times they're not wanting to work on contingency because if it doesn't work out that first time and you move on from then, well, then they're just kind of, lack of a better phrase, they're kind of screwed. They're left with their hands in their pockets.
What's the
going on.
percentage rate for success?
It's usually like a not to exceed is what I was told. So like 2% not to exceed 100,000 type thing. So if you're getting a $40 million grant at 2%, that could really begin to suck.
I was wondering, are they doing like 12 grants a month, and what percentage of them would be successful? I don't have a feeling for that at all.
So going back to, again, because it's what I know, my wife's department was wrapped into economic development in Oakland, and they had a meeting, a quarterly meeting, and in that they talked about the grants that they got. And it was something like they spent right around, I think it was like $10 million they spent to get all the grants, and they generated like $2 billion. It's money well spent, right? So it's about how we're gonna frame it, and if this starts rolling and it turns into something that we might even be able to fund a department based on everything and get 2 or 3 guys, like you're saying, that they are just firing off 12 grants a month, seeing what sticks. Because a lot of times too in grant funding, it's about being a thorn in the side and just throwing spaghetti at a wall and seeing how much you can just throw at them to where they're finally like, okay.
Another thing to keep in mind, and I don't predict it would be for this year's budget, but just for us to keep in mind, when Ford does finally decide to do something with that property, whether they're going to do it or they're gonna sell it, the development that has to go on there, that will be a full-time job. We cannot have our the planner and the zoning in the office be paying attention to what's going on over there. The amount of permits, and it's gonna be needed to done quickly, because whoever purchases it, or if it's redeveloped within Ford, is going to want constant. So at some point, we do need to be paying attention, keeping in our mind, that will need attention.
Not just that, but even just the abstract tracking for Eagle DNR and EPA, what might happen over there.
Because of it, and that's what I'm saying, that becomes a full-time position.
Oh, yeah. No, I'm saying on top of everything you've said, that's another one that's just gonna be insane.
Megan, are you still meeting with Ford at all?
We have our task force. We've moved to about, I feel like it's every 2 to 3 months. There's nothing going on at the moment.
What if tariffs cannot
That would
help
that would
push things along?
You would think, you would hope. I don't, not heard anything.
So Jamie, do you have any experience before working with grant funding firm, is that they're called firms? Like, or, I mean, versus just hiring someone to work part-time just for the Village of Romeo?
I have very limited experience in grants. I've done it with nonprofits. Personally, that's why I said it's a nightmare that I would not want to take on.
Mm-hmm. And it is hard to find a person that specializes just in that. That isn't working for a firm.
Mm-hmm. So working through a firm is probably the more efficient channel?
I can ask around to some of my other supervisors and see what their communities,
Yeah.
I know that they do. I don't know how they go about it.
We should include something in the budget for that. I think that's pretty
I mean,
important.
have them as an advisor, I think, is invaluable. Because again, we can go on grants.gov or any of the other grant sites.
But it's about having the
We don't
ability
know.
to have that free time. If we're constantly putting out fires and doing the things, I can only,
Like I said, I have a stack of grants that we qualify for.
I can see what information I can get by next Wednesday. And if it's valuable enough to.
We can add it in.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Car wash.
Every week in the village hall.
We don't have a parking lot over there,
Bake
so we
sale?
can't do
I
that.
don't know.
I like it. Bake sale.
One question I had, I guess it doesn't really relate to Municipal Street. I noticed that a lot of the equipment for like DPW, like the machines, the plows, the leaf trucks aren't included in the SEMCOG planning grant. I mean, that's a significant portion of the assets that DPW has.
You mean as in that they weren't found in need?
Yeah, I guess were they not found in need, and that's why they weren't included in the capital
This
approval
is a
plan?
very high level what needs to be done.
Mm-hmm.
And some of them, I mean, we just got the snow plow.
Mm-hmm.
The leaf vac is newer.
We have a number of trucks that are new.
We
Yeah, we
there
just
is a
bought
need
the
for trucks.
backhoe.
We have a truck, some of those in there.
So just regular maintenance on that can just fall in their
And
individual
put
budget.
away enough to start replacing.
And correct me if I'm wrong, was the CIP to identify assets, not necessarily list the assets that we have already identified, but also find the other assets that we don't know exist?
And also at a high level, we literally don't have every little thing marked.
Yeah, I was just curious, because it talked about the actual physical building or the property, but when we're talking about a $700,000 street sweeper, that's certainly, is an asset of theirs.
I mean, I do know Tim and them, like, as far as depreciation goes, they know what they have. There's a lot of stuff in the village that we don't know what we
And
have.
they haven't gone there yet. DPW was like scheduled last.
Yeah.
And we don't, what is today? It might even be tomorrow. I feel like it was 23rd, that their HRC rep for the SEMCOG planning grant will be at their facility looking at the building, the roof, the things. They actually haven't been physically looked at yet.
Okay, I was just curious.
Any other questions on general or 204 Municipal Street Fund before I move on? Okay. All right, so good news to kind of round this out. So I was asked at the last meeting to look at the cemetery millage, and as we discussed at the last meeting, there's a potential need to fix some of the cemetery roads in the future. And if you recall, last year, we actually lowered the millage because there wasn't any identified capital at the time. So with that potential cost sitting out there, I know we're still working on getting an estimate, we wanted to revisit the millage and how much it brings in. So as I stated, so there's estimated to be no rollback for 2025, so our millage will stay the same. There won't be a decrease in the millage because taxable value is estimated to go up 5%. So if we look at rubbish, so if you recall last meeting, we had said that we would reduce the rubbish millage because we're taking in more tax than we're paying out in services. So there's no reason for us to keep levying at that amount. So based on the estimates that we got, it looks like we can almost half the rubbish millage and still bring in enough revenue to cover services or dip a little bit into that fund balance in the next year to eat it up. So that removes about 0.75 mils out of the taxpayer's pocket.
We even ended up reducing the mills last year.
Yes.
Overall, there was between cemetery and rubbish.
Mhm.
It wasn't drastic, but you would have seen $20 to $50 less in your.
Yeah. And it looks like we can do the same thing this year. So if we can reduce the rubbish millage by 0.75 mils, we can bring the cemetery millage back up to full to 0.7174, which it's at, for only 0.34 mils. So we're reducing mills overall by about 0.4 if we were to do that.
I don't know if anyone else saw it, but we got an email from the chairperson of the cemetery board addressing the road issue.
Oh, I did not see that. No, I wasn't on that communication.
I didn't read it thoroughly. I just kind of skimmed, but apparently she talked to whoever put the roads in, and it sounds like both she and them have a different opinion. So I didn't read it thoroughly.
Was it the one about the cracking along the sides and the?
Well, the layer in too thin.
I think did it come into?
It sounded like his email. He defended it pretty stoutly. That he just said when you have a paved road that meets just unfinished land, you're going to have those fractures and cracks along the sides of it. I mean.
Yeah, but I don't think that was the
original.
The concern of the sides.
Yeah, I'm reading it right now. He's talking about cracking near the edge, near the grass, which was not the issue. And this is the paving company. It was the email from them, not the engineers.
Well, if that would be the case, then that is a good.
I think the company was called Somerset.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm not.
Yes,
I don't necessarily want new roads. Like I said, I'd rather ride on them till they die.
Well, and I'm not sure that, would we even do anything this year anyways?
No, 100%.
So I don't even know pulling it back up all the way is necessary.
Okay.
But, well, here's another consideration, because the cemetery, and we talked about this on they can't own land or
purchase.
They can't purchase, but the village could act as a pass-through with their money. Because what I was looking up some things. Essentially, the village could buy land and just act as a pass-through. It's literally, they hand us a check, we hand a check over. There is an argument for that because over there, one of the lots is entirely wooded. It's going to be considerable to grade it, knock everything down. There might be land just like in a little corner that we might be able to pick up. We still have the issue with the retention pond, don't know where that sits. Again, it's been backfilled, half of it, for 20 years and it's never washed out, so who knows? But just something to think about. the village was to act as a pass-through, that would be up to you guys as a board. But with their money, if they have the money, because we have, I think, less than 40 spots, or less than 30 right now for emergencies. We are definitely at the no vacancy point again. And that pond area would have been, I think, 1,000
We
or
have
2,000.
conversations with the homeowners that live along and see if
That's one of the areas that I've identified, that if we could act as a
eminent
pass-through.
domain for,
I don't
cemetery.
think it would, eminent domain doesn't fit that. It's not.
Well, I think
it's not a
conversations you
necess-
could
well,
be
it's a need,
asked.
but it's not
There could be, there could be
Covenant.
conversations.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is that this body is recommending to keep the millage where it's at. The 0.37.
Just still remove the 0.7.
Well, yeah, we're gonna remove that regardless, because those funds are restricted, so it's silly to collect the money if we're able to cover
you
service.
gain all this money and we cannot
Yeah,
spend it
we
on
can't spend anything but rubbish.
garbage.
So,
Let me ask you this, Danielle, because cemetery.
Our mills are bad, we need that over in the roads and not in the garbage.
The cemetery is gonna have, after budget season's over, they're gonna do their master plan, and if with master planning, come to find out they do need to raise that, can they go back and?
so they could July 2026. So you can only levy every July. So you have to make a decision, that's what you levy, and then you can't change it until the next July.
I would be okay with some, but I don't feel that it needs to go all the way up.
I don't see why we have to change it if the chair hasn't asked for anything, right? Isn't, I mean, I don't think.
It has been discussions, but she said that, she needs to be able to justify. And the problem is they can't right now because they don't know what they're looking at.
But I do understand property purchase, and for instance, we need more parking, but we can't, when the things come available, we don't have the money to buy the lot or the space. So you do need to have something there. So whether it goes to the road or property purchase, I understand that, but given that we don't have an intention at the moment, going all the, just seems unnecessary.
They are meeting with Danielle on the 29th. That'll hopefully give them a better understanding of where they are so that they can, and that's the day before the next meeting. So out of that meeting, who knows, they might have a better understanding and say, actually, we'd like to raise it, and then they can provide you guys with an explanation of why they would like to raise it or keep it the same. But they need more data and information on their end to make a decision.
Yeah.
Does it? Because I would like a spot one day. So if I will pay the extra to start building up there, so that we can purchase the land. But I don't want to just be spending extra money when I can't have a spot there, and we don't have a reason why. In my eye, I mean all of the residents like myself.
Yeah. Okay, well, for now, then we'll keep it where it's at, and then depending on the outcome of the meeting on the 29th, we can readjust if needed on the 30th when we meet again. Okay. All right, well, that's all I had. Obviously, if any questions
We didn't get
come
any
up-
information. I have not received anything back from John Kasor with water rates. Or in sewer, so still waiting there.
Okay.
Hopefully by the 30th.
Yeah.
He did say a week or two, so that we really should.
And again, enterprise funds, they don't technically require a budget by state of Michigan, so we can always amend later. Obviously, we want to do it up front, but if push comes to shove, we can present an amendment in the July meeting.
And when do we need to have our mills levied?
We are shooting to have, I believe, the public hearing, I think it was the 19th of May. So we would need to have our mills decided by the 12th. So we would need to have, okay, this is what we're gonna levy, and then have Jamie put it in the newspaper for the public hearing announcement, so. We have a little bit of time to decide on the cemetery millage, but not much, because we want to be able to give Caroline enough time to prepare the tax bills. In order for her to do that, she needs to have the millage rates.
Okay, is there any more discussion, any more questions? Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Support?
Motion by Edwards, support by Bartholomew, all in favor?
Aye.
Any
Thank you.
opposed? We have none opposed.
By the way, thank you very much.